Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava 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 Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravan Yamuna Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunati Vanachari Yamunati Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna,
Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama,
Jaya Radha Madhava, Radha Madhava, Radha Madhava, Shri Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivraj Acharya Stutta Nishatta Shishimad His Divine Grace Lahisi Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Cheva Narottamam Deving Saraswating Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudhirayet Nashta Praeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Just thinking, something came to my mind. Hold on. Krishna. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 29, Text 69. Sateika nishte manasi Sateika nishte manasi Bhagavat Parshvavartini Bhagavat Parshvavartini Tamaschandramasi Vedam Tamaschandramasi Vedam Uparajyava bhasate Uparajyava bhasate Satveika nishte manasi Bhagavat Parshvavartini Tamaschandramasi Vedam Uparajyava bhasate. Please chant.
Satvaika nishte manasi Bhagavat Parshvavartini Tamaschandramasi Vedam Uparajyava bhasate.
Mataji.
Bhagavat Pasvavartini Tamaschandramasi Vedam Uparajyava bhasate
Satvaika nishte manasi Bhagavat Parshvavartini Tamaschandramasi Vedam Uparajyava bhasate.
Sattva eka nishte. In full Krishna consciousness. Manasi, in a mind. Bhagavat, with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Parshvavartini, being constantly associated. Tamaha, the dark planet. Chandramasi, in the moon. Iva, like. Idam, this cosmic manifestation. Uparajya, being connected. Avabhasate, becomes manifest. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Krishna consciousness means, actually before I start, I found this helped me. I read this verse and I was thinking, what am I going to say? So I looked up on the ISKCON Desire Tree audio database and I listened to a lecture of His Holiness Satchinandana Swami and also partially of His Holiness Bhakti Rasamrita Swami. And Satchinandana Swami used this verse in a sacred space retreat. And before he starts to read the verse, he says, now please listen very carefully. You have to use your whole Krishna consciousness, your whole capacity to understand that verse, because it's not easy to understand. And he also mentioned he was reading the purport 25 times. And so I felt relieved, I felt confirmed when I read it for the first time that it's not so easy, this text and purport. And he especially said, Krishna consciousness means, and then he built, you know how Maharaj is, he built up the tension, like, do you want to know what it means? Vraja Lila Mataji, you want to know what it means, Krishna consciousness? Hare Krishna. So Krishna consciousness means constantly associating with the Supreme Personality of Godhead in such a mental state that the devotee can observe the cosmic manifestation exactly as the Supreme Personality of Godhead does. Such observation is not always possible, but it becomes manifest exactly like the dark planet known as Rahu, which is observed in the presence of the full moon. Purport. It has been explained in the previous verse that all desires on the mental platform become visible one after another. Sometimes, however, by the supreme will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the whole stockpile can be visible all at one time. In Brahma Samhita, it is said, Karmani nirdahati kintu cha bhakti bhajam. When a person is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, his stockpile of material desires is minimized. Instead, the stockpile of... When a person is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, his stockpile of material desires is minimized. Indeed, the desires no longer fructify in the form of gross bodies. Instead, the stockpile of desires becomes visible on the mental platform by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this connection, the darkness occurring before the full moon, the lunar eclipse, can be explained as being another planet known as Rahu. According to Vedic astronomy, the Rahu planet, which is not visible, is accepted. Sometimes the Rahu planet is visible in the presence of full moonlight. It then appears that this Rahu planet exists somewhere near the orbit of the moon. The failure of modern moon excursionists may be due to the Rahu planet. In other words, those who are supposed to be going to the moon may actually be going to the invisible planet Rahu. Actually, they are not going to the moon, but to the planet Rahu. And after reaching this planet, they come back. Apart from this discussion, the point is that a living entity has immense and unlimited desires for material enjoyment. And he has to transmigrate from one gross body to another until these desires are exhausted. No living entity is free from the cycle of birth and death unless he takes to Krishna consciousness. Therefore in this verse it is clearly stated, Satveka Nishte, that when one is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, in one stroke he is freed of past and future mental desires. Then, by the grace of the Supreme Lord, everything becomes simultaneously manifest within the mind. In this regard, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur cites the example of Mother Yashoda seeing the whole cosmic manifestation within the mouth of Lord Krishna. By the grace of Lord Krishna, Mother Yashoda saw all the universes and planets within the mouth of Krishna. Similarly, by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, A Krishna conscious person can see all his dormant desires at one time and finish all his future transmigration. This facility is especially given to the devotee to make his path clear for returning home back to Godhead. Why we see things not experienced in this life is explained herein. That which we see in the future expression of a gross body, or is already stocked in our mental stockpile. Because a Krishna conscious person does not have to accept the future gross body, his recorded desires are fulfilled in a dream. We therefore sometimes find things in a dream never experienced in our present life. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttara Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shah Shri Rupam Sadhujastam Sahagano Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhamritam Shcha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubheva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashtadeshatarine. Hare Krishna. So, as mentioned before, I guess the fact that His Holiness Satchidananda Swami uses that verse, or used that verse in a sacred space retreat, reveals that this verse is unique in its content, and it reveals something very important, which I think is often a doubt in a sadhaka's mind. And I feel very grateful that this verse came up, and I actually read it, and when I saw Rahu, I was like, wow, intrigued. But then when I made the list, I didn't actually check which verse, so it just coincidentally came on me, and yeah, I see that's Krishna's mercy to show me something. And so it speaks mainly, in this verse, it speaks about desire. And just as a small introduction, we can speak about what is desire. Desire, Srila Prabhupada mentions, is the nature of the living entity. And desire literally means that which tries to, basically something which should connect you to pleasure, or your search for pleasure. That's the word, the meaning. And we all know this one sutra, Anandamaya Vihasat, that the living entity is meant to experience happiness, Anandamaya. So the living entity is meant to enjoy. Nice statement. And we can see that if we walk out of the door, we can see all the living entities are engaged in different ways in search of happiness. You have the people driving around in the car, they're trying to go to work and earn money, and by this money they can buy things and fulfill their material desires. You have the plants, the trees, they are growing in direction of the light, and they are trying to access the water on the ground. Why? They want to drink water, they want to enjoy the sunlight. You go to the town, you see so many shops selling things, so living entities, human beings walking around buying things in order to experience happiness. So it's an obvious thing that everybody is looking for happiness in different ways. And according to the three gunas, it's either in a state of inactivity or in a very active state, inactivity in the tamas, or very active. How you say, what's the word? Striving for few fruits of action. And then Sattva guna is mainly being present, by being present and experiencing some kind of godly nature in this, even in this material world. So different ways how to become happy. And the origin is in the spiritual realm, that we are Anandamaya Vyasat, we are happy in the association of Krishna, who is Satchidananda Vigraha. He is the embodiment of happiness, pleasure. And so as a pure soul, we experience happiness in connection with Him, in our relationship with Him. But then some living entities, they have a desire to be independent of the Lord. They somehow don't engage in the relationship with the Lord, and they want to be independent. And when this happens, in the Bhagavad Gita, it's very nicely explained in the 15th chapter, in the verse where the banyan tree is explained. So the origin of desire and happiness is in the spiritual world, but then when the living entity wants to be independent, it turns away from Krishna, and then the material world is created. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, in explanation to what this banyan tree is, that Krishna speaks about, he says, now there is no ready experience in this world of a tree situated with its branches down and its roots upwards. But there is such a thing. That tree can be found beside a reservoir of water. We can see that the trees on the bank reflect upon the water with their branches down and roots up. In other words, the tree of this material world is only a reflection of the real tree of the spiritual world. And now it comes the important statement. This reflection of the spiritual world is situated on desire, just as a tree's reflection is situated on water. So Prabhupada gives a very graphic image how when the tree is mirrored on water surface, the water is what makes the tree being reflected. And similarly in this material world, it's our desire which reflects the variety of the spiritual world in this world. Our desire. Desire is the cause of things being situated in this reflected material light. One who wants to get out of this material existence must know this tree thoroughly through analytical study. Then he can cut off his relationship with it. One time Srila Prabhupada, I heard he was in New York and he went up to a skyscraper building. He saw the whole Manhattan skyline and he mentioned all of this is due to sex desire. And that's basically the same the same thing, that it's all just because there's a desire, and the Manhattan skyline is especially a very unique manifestation of desire, because Prabhupada, he also mentioned once, New York is New York because there are so many beautiful women here. So somehow or other, New York has this collective karma that people go there who are very much in the mode of passion. And mode of passion means
The apple.
sorry,
The apple.
the big apple,
Yes, New York.
the big apple. So these people are so, they have such a strong connection to this Raj Guru, that see how much they manifest. They manifest this huge, big apple. And Prabhupada mentioned it's because there's a lot of beautiful women means Raj Guru. You know, the Prabhupada once was asked which is the most beautiful animal, and then somebody said it's the cow. Prabhupada said no, it's not the cow, it's the horse. And the horse is, according to scriptures, in the mode of passion. And you can see, it has very nicely shaped form. It's muscular and it's fast and it's... So the mode of passion gives this kind of beauty in this material world. Of course, Sattva Guna also gives beauty, but it's a different kind of... The one which is attracting our eyes mainly is the Rajguna. So that's an important point, that this whole world, whatever we see, is based on desire. And now we know as a sadhaka, our goal is to transfer our desires again and engage them in the relationship with Krishna. Meaning, we're looking for happiness in Krishna consciousness. And the way how this is done is, it starts by a pure devotee who is already engaged on the platform of Krishna consciousness, who already directs his desires completely on Krishna. He takes the conditioned soul and engages him or her in the service of the Lord. Because the problem is, the conditioned living entity doesn't really have the ability to desire for the service of the Lord as long as the conditioning is strong and as long as the conditioning is there. So that's why it is mentioned only a pure devotee can give bhakti to a living entity. And this is the reason, because the spiritual master, the pure devotee, he's in this material world, but he's actually in the spiritual world. Like we hear here in this verse, that a devotee can observe the cosmic manifestation exactly as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the pure devotee doesn't have the vision the conditioned living entity has, but he sees everything in connection to Krishna. So what happens, this pure devotee, he sees you and me being a conditioned living entity as a servant of Krishna, and he engages us. And that's the big secret, how slowly our desire gets purified. Because now and what happens to the conditioned living entity? The conditioned living entity coming in touch with the pure devotee, and the pure devotee being the embodiment of all the good qualities. We sing every morning, Samsara Dava Nalavida Loka Tranaya Karunya Ganaganatam Raptasya Kalyana Gunarnavasya. He's an ocean of good qualities, and so in us comes the desire to serve the pure devotee. And he then takes that service and gives it to Krishna. And Krishna then, he gives us the mercy, he purifies us. So that's how we start to transfer our desires from the material plane to the spiritual plane. And the spiritual master gives the whole program how to do that. Shri Charana Paladev Subhadramaya Ki Jai, Shri Gornitai Ki Jai. And Srila Prabhupada also often speaks about how the spiritual master is expert in dovetailing the tendencies of the spirit of the conditioned living entity. So if the living entity has a desire to paint, then the spiritual master will engage the disciple in painting for the Lord's pleasure. Or if the conditioned living entity has a desire to collect money, then he will go out and distribute books and collect as much money as possible. Or if a conditioned living entity has a desire to know a lot, he will say study the books and like this. So everything can be engaged. And in this way the desires get purified more and more and more. And because we serve Krishna, he will also reveal himself because he will be pleased more and more. And one thing which happens in this process is not only do the desires get transformed, I mean that's actually the best thing what can happen, but sometimes it's not that easy. It's not that every desire just transforms immediately. For example, the desire to eat something particular. You know, if one is completely connected with Krishna on the platform of eating, he would just accept Krishna Prasad. But maybe then there is some desire to eat ice cream, which is not usually in the offering for Krishna. Then we connect that. I mean, it can be connected. But more better than this, Prabhupada liked to quote Yamunacharya, who in a verse he says when the desire for sex or the attraction to sex life, the opposite sex comes, I spit on the thought and I turn my face in disgust. And one time our Guru Maharaj was asked, how is it possible that Yamunacharya, he had this thought? And Guru Maharaj said, that means he was not yet completely pure. Because the desire was still somehow, like we hear here, Rahu, which usually we cannot see it. Rahu is a shadow planet. Nobody can see it except when there is a lunar or solar eclipse. And so sometimes that desire came up in Yamunacharya, this memory, this thought. But by Krishna's mercy, he could detach himself at least from the desire, meaning the ahankara was not so strong anymore that he identified with his mind. But he was detached and he could see that this is just Rahu. It's a material desire and I spit on it, I reject it and I turn away. So that's another thing that happens, that we see how a desire in us which has been there 10 years ago and now all of a sudden it shows up again. And then now it's different. Now I look at it from a more distant perspective. I can see it's not me, but it's there. So that's something that happens. But the main point I want to just in the end address is what I mentioned in the beginning, that I feel this verse, it answers something within us which I think every sadhaka is doubting deep within. And we also hear from Prabhupada how Srila Prabhupada once he gave a lecture, and in this lecture he mentioned that you only when you're 7%, meaning 100% Krishna conscious, you can go back to Krishna. When you're fully Krishna conscious. And he was making that point very strongly. You have to become fully Krishna conscious. And after the lecture, many of the devotees who listened, they became worried and they became discouraged. because they saw themselves and they saw they are not at all fully Krishna conscious, they are very far away. And so they went to Prabhupada and expressed the doubt. And they said, Prabhupada, is it really only 100%? And Prabhupada, he could see what's happening. So he said, even if it's 90%, it will be okay. And the devotees still thought 90%. Wow. And Prabhupada could pick that up and he said, okay, 80%. To be honest, I don't know exactly the figures he mentioned. And I think then one more time he went down and he said 70%, but not less, and he walked away. And no, this is something we hear, and this discussion comes up, and we wonder, do I now have to be 100% Krishna conscious, or is 70 enough? And much more than focusing on this percentage, because anyway, how will we be able to count that? Not possible to count. We should take the philosophy and especially this purport. So in Bhagavad Gita, the criteria to go back to Krishna is very simply mentioned. It said that one who remembers him at the time of death will go to him. So that's a little bit a different approach. Meaning at the time of death, if you remember Krishna, then you go to him. Prabhupada said if you're 100%. And we know nobody can go to the spiritual world if you're not 100%. That's a fact. Because if you go there with 80%, the 20% of your material desires will create a havoc. And Krishna doesn't want that. He has a spiritual world to enjoy with his devotees only. Actually, in this collection I just want to mention, His Holiness Bhakti Rasamrita Swami made a very nice point in connection to this statement that material world is based on desire. He mentioned that it is also based on Krishna's desire. And he was saying because the material world also fulfills some of Krishna's desires which he cannot fulfill in the spiritual world. Namely killing the demons, rescuing the fallen souls. And this is how did I come to that point? Krishna. Yeah, in the spiritual world, the atmosphere is such that everybody is a devotee. That's the spiritual world. It cannot be changed. So we have to be 100% Krishna conscious to go back, and we have to remember the Lord at the time of death. And this verse shows us how we practice. The spiritual master is engaging us in the devotional service, and we become more Krishna conscious, but then we somehow or other come to realize that these material desires are very strong. They are. His Holiness Satchidananda Swami, I was listening because he then said, I'm asking especially the senior devotees, do you know this experience? When all of a sudden, after many years of practice, you see, wow, I have so many material desires. And he said, yeah, this is actually Krishna's mercy, as it is explained in this verse, that Krishna is doing that in order to purify us more. So when we take shelter of the spiritual master and he engages us in the devotional service, and that purifies us to a certain extent, but then it's ultimately, as we can hear here, it's Krishna's mercy to get fully purified. And he does that in different ways. Sometimes we hear in the scripture that Krishna, he will fulfill your desires externally in a way that afterwards you don't want this anymore. Sometimes, so for example, the classic example, I want to have a relationship in this world, I want to get married, then Krishna gives you a husband, a wife, you get married, you get children, and afterwards you're suffering a lot because you have to take care of so many things, there's conflict, you're busy, you don't have time for Krishna consciousness, and then at some point you realize, actually I have to fulfill my desire for relationship, intimacy, friendship with Krishna in the center. So that's one way. Another way we see in Dhruva Maharaj's example, and I'm not saying that I give all the ways how he does, but just a few things which we see in scripture. Dhruva Maharaj, he had a desire, and he came to the point of getting the blessing from the Lord to fulfill the desires, but then he became so Krishna conscious that he didn't want it anymore, but still he had to accept it. So that's even another stage. And we can see in Dhruva Maharaj's case, he was regretting, he felt bad. And here we see two more things. One is in dreams, that the desire which is there in the karma account of the living entity, the bija, this desire seed, it has to fructify. Krishna doesn't like to change his laws. He's always acting according to his laws. So what is there as a desire has to happen. And then what Krishna does, instead of fulfilling the desire externally, which might entangle the living entity so much that it will hamper his devotional service or her devotional service, he will fulfill it in the mind, in a dream. And Satyananda Maharaj at this point said, I guess we all know what kinds of dreams we have, and that doesn't belong in the temple room. So no, sometimes we have very ugly dreams, and basically that's what's happening. It's Krishna's mercy, he fulfills our desire in a dream, so it's less impactful. Still we're experiencing pain, emotions and whatever, sometimes even happiness, but it's only in the mind. And then what he states in this verse itself is that if Krishna becomes very merciful, he shows the living entity all the desires at one time. And he's giving this example of Rahu planet. So Rahu planet, as already mentioned, is a shadow planet, meaning you don't see it. It's always here. I mean, it's always at some place you can calculate, but you don't see it. You only see it when there is a full moon or a new moon and the earth is exactly aligned. Then you see the Rahu planet. And of course you can say, hey, come on, it's just the planet doesn't exist. It's just the shadow of the earth which is falling on the sun or the moon. Or it's the shadow of the moon falling on the sun. But Prabhupada says differently. And also Satyananda, I'm just mentioning because I guess you know Maharaj so well, much better. Before Maharaj read this paragraph in the purport, he said, and now Prabhupada will smash the scientists. So we can hear with a big smile, big proud smile on our face. So Prabhupada, he's saying the Rahu planet exists. And that's what the Vedic scriptures say. And so the Rahu planet comes once when the full moon or new moon is there. And in a similar way, our material desires, we don't see them most of the time. But if Krishna is very merciful, he reveals them to us. But not only that, he also reveals the whole cosmic manifestation in the way he sees it. And that will make us perfect. And then we can finally overcome these desires and completely let go of this material world and absorb ourselves in our relationship with Krishna and go back to the spiritual world. Hare Krishna. So thank you for yes.
I want to question, but
Yeah.
his relation, Prabhu, pode dizer. No processo de serviço devocional,
In 90% of devotional service now in devotee.
começa Shravana Kirtana. Como é que o devoto, ele, baseado assim no que ele falou, o Prabhupada fala sobre as porcentagens, né, 60, 70, como é que o devoto não se confundir, tipo assim, se ele é um bom cantor, ele faz o Kirtana e todo mundo fica assim, o devoto não se confundir, que agora eu estou nesse percentual, como é que o devoto tem esse cuidado para ele, entendeu?
Based on you was talking about the Prabhupada last time about the 7%, 8%, 9% of Krishna consciousness. How can the devotee not stay confused with the
Sou um bom Kirtana, eu canto muito bem,
with the
sou nesse
ego, with
percentual.
the proud? Yes, I'm a very nice kirtan, I'm a very nice
Actually, thank you, because I wanted to finish also the point, because do I now need 170? And we find the answer here that ultimately we cannot fully get rid of all the desires ourselves, but Krishna has to help. And Maharaj Bhaktira Samrita Swami gives the example of when you write an exam and you're under the minimum score, but the teacher saw you always very nice and you endeavor so much, he will let you pass. It's the mercy of the teacher. And that's how it is answered, that if we are sincere, if our attitude is right, Krishna will empower us to remember him and become fully Krishna conscious. And your question, how to do that? Well, my experience is Krishna is also helping there, meaning he's smashing the ego. If I become too proud because I'm a manager, then he will do something to smash my ego. If I'm proud to be a nice kirtaniya, then something will happen to smash my ego. But of course we can proactively also become humble, and maybe one thing is to remember that Krishna is the ability in man. Even if I have some good ability, it's coming from Krishna, he's giving it to me, and he can take it anytime.
Minha experiência pessoal é que Krishna muitas vezes esmaga o nosso ego, né? Quando a gente pensa que é melhor kirtania ou isso ou aquilo, Krishna vem e esmaga o nosso ego. Então, Krishna ajuda o devoto, pessoalmente.
Okay, it's already 35. Thank you for your attention and have a nice day. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Panchakatara Kripa Sindhu Niraja Paditanam
Every time when we are meet with the Japata Maharaj, Guru Maharaj, sometimes the devotees coming, oh, you is a very great devotee. And immediately he answered, no, I'm more fallen down, more fallen down. Every time he answers this.
I guess he means it. Ah, yeah.
Please.
Yeah. Knowledge. Je.
Preguiçoso?
Não.
Não.
We have an Akar farm here.
Do you know? He will show you.
Ok.
Thank you.
Actors are legal entity also.
Hmm?
Actors. You understand? Actors. Actors, the bacteria that are in dust that cause allergic.
I don't know that.
Actors.
Maybe, I don't.
I send that word too.
And what is this? What is?
In dust, they are in blank, in dust, in those actors.
But why you mention occurs?
Because we have an actors farm in the Kurti.
No, we watched them last year. We watched Kemik.
Wash dry.
Haribo.
Hey, Krishna.
Haribo.
The Sanat Kumar meet in contact with you.
No.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very good because we are Latinos and Latinos is very
Detached.
in the best division, né? In generous division.